First, I would like to thank Father Walker, the pastor of this most extraordinary edifice, for hosting the final resting acknowledgement and ceremony of our departed brother. I want to thank the mayor for his kind words, the alders, the fire commissioners, the city of New Haven, our elected officials at the state and federal level, Representative DeLauro, Senator Murphy, Senator Blumenthal, who are assisting us behind the scenes as we mourn. There is still a process of finding the answers to the questions that we need. On behalf of the New Haven Fire Department, I extend our most heartfelt condolences to you, Erica, to Oliver, and the bundle of joy soon to come crew, to Kathy, your family, to his grandparents who showed up outside of my office the other day, and we had a chance to talk. No words can express our sorrow, no words to express your hurt. You're fortunate that I have this tablet today because my wife this morning tore up half my remarks. I know she didn't realize that I've got the cloud, so I brought them back. I'll pay for that later. I talked to my pastor this week because I was struggling, really struggling. And he said, speak from your heart. And what you don't have, God will give to you. And as I listened to Chief O'Connor and all the words that were spoken by the officers, it gave me confirmation. And so if I had to title this, I would say that these are the lessons I learned from Ricardo. Because July would be 2 years. He had less than 2 years. I remember his interview vividly. Commissioner Cousin and I sat on the other side of the table. And class 62 and 61, you know what that felt like. You see, in the interview process, firefighters sometimes want to tell you what they think you want to hear, so as not to dampen their chances of becoming a firefighter. But I could tell this young man was passionate. He was like a coiled spring, kinetic energy, that he just had to open his mouth before I asked him any questions. And he said, Chief, I have to tell you something right up front. And he told me about an incident when he was younger. And I smiled at him. And he looked at me. And he wondered why we were smiling. And I said, man, what you told me, I'd have to get rid of half of my department. You're fine. And the weight came off of his shoulders, and that look in his eye, I'll never forget it. Ricardo wanted to be a firefighter since his early ages. He would demand for people to take him to the firehouse. His parents told me he would march into City Hall and talk to the mayor. It resonated with me because I wanted to be a firefighter since I was 4 years old. And I know what that passion and drive can be when you finally get the opportunity. He played sports, he played hockey. He was very passionate about the team effort. But what I remember about that interview was his honesty. So the first lesson I learned was his life, about his life, was to follow your dreams. No one gets anywhere by themselves, and be honest and forthright. The next lesson I learned from him was about love. He loved you, Erica. He loved his family. He loved his mother. He loved his firefighters. He loved the job. He loved what he was doing. Every time you saw him, he was smiling. I would say, Torres, how's it going? Living a dream, Chief. And smiling, always smiling. Along with his grandparents, the influence that you had on him and his mother formed his early foundation. You produced a solid young man, one to be proud of. Erica, he loved you so much, and when Oliver came into his life, that completed him as a father and a husband. He was so proud. Ricardo loved being a firefighter. He beamed all the time he put that uniform on. He loved his crew, and he respected his lieutenant. He respected his captain. And then when he went to work with Lieutenant Rankins on that fateful night, he respected him as well. Our prayers go out to him. I know Lieutenant Rankins is watching this via live feed. He fought every day to get here. When I went to the hospital to give him the bad news, one mantle that you wear as the chief of department is that you have to give the bad news. It cannot come from anyone else but you. It is ultimately your responsibility. And so when I went to the hospital, after speaking to Lieutenant Rankin's mom, to give him the news, he couldn't speak, but he wanted paper. And the first thing he wrote was, "Where's Ricardo?" "Where's Torres? I want to see my crew." He wrote it over and over and over again. Dixwell Station, he loved you. He loved working there because it was busy. He needed busy. He thrived on it. So the lesson I learned from him next was about love. Loving what you want to do. Never forget your foundation. Love those who are close to you and cherish every moment, the good and the bad. I also learned from him, do not take any day for granted. To live life every day as if the days to come are not promised. The next lesson I learned from him was about loss. I learned loss with Ricardo because I love the fire service and I love firefighters. And I recognized my responsibility, so when I lost him, it cut through my very core. What I do know about losing Ricardo is the same thing that every fire chief and organization learns when they lose one that they love, is that every code, every policy, every step, every piece of equipment, every innovation in what we do was paid for by not only sacrificing the sacrifice of our firefighters, but the sacrifice their families give us. So learning about his life, his love, and our loss, I wanted to honor Ricardo with a legacy from the New Haven Fire Department. I reached out to Chief O'Connor and the University of New Haven, and I reached out to my dear friend Bobby Halton from Fire Engineering. This fall, we will be honoring Ricardo with a training symposium on firefighter tactics, mental health, health, safety, and well-being of firefighters, support services for our spouses and significant others, leadership and partner support. We will never forget him. Ricardo will be amongst us and a part of us forever. Rest in peace. We'll take it from here.